Foreign tourists are entitled to be baffled. The Tower of London, the crown jewels guarded by diminutive mercenaries from a distant shore.
Halt! Halt! Who comes there?
The keys.
Whose keys?
Queen Elizabeth's keys.
Pass Queen Elizabeth's keys! All's well!
The grammar may be somewhat quaint, but the Gurkhas don't fight on syntax. Their legendary ferocity is matched only by their loyalty to our monarch.
God preserve Queen Elizabeth!
Aye!
Their distant homeland is enshrined in stained glass at the Sandhurst Military Academy. The real thing is a noble mountain in the Annapurna range of the Himalayas. Nepal, spectacularly beautiful, pitifully impoverished. This is the Gurkha heartland, and to be born male here is to face a life of peasant drudgery. But there's one escape route. Boys like this, already toiling in the rice fields, will be among the many thousands who will compete to take it. It is to join the British Army. This is what they dream of and literally are prepared to die for. Ironically, in a changing world, their chances are becoming slimmer. Another Gurkha regiment, this time the 7th Duke of Edinburgh's own Gurkha Rifles, is being stood down. The grief is evident. These are fighting men, many of whom would have chosen to fall in battle rather than be neutered by political defence cuts. But the backs remain ramrod straight as the kukris, half knife, half sword, are sheathed for eternity. It's a royal occasion. Prince Philip arrives to take the valedictory salute to the regiment that bore his title. Soldiers whose battle honours were redolent with wild bravery and unquestioned sacrifice. More than 200,000 Gurkhas fought for Britain in the First World War. 20,000 were killed or injured. In World War II, some 250,000 took on the Germans at Tobruk and Monte Cassino and the fanatical Japanese in the Far East. They suffered 23,655 casualties. Most men are marching into oblivion. 4 Gurkha regiments have been concertinaed into one, 2/3 of their number jettisoned. Yet courtesy prevails with the traditional floral farewell to Prince Philip, an anomaly explained by George MacDonald Fraser, novelist and military historian who fought alongside them in Burma.
That was the curious thing about the Gurkha. These awfully happy, jolly, nice little men were the most terrible, dangerous fighting men on the face of the earth. I mean, they were natural-born killers.
MacDonald Fraser's celebrated fictional hero Flashman would have fainted at the outset of this Gurkha action against the Japanese.
They went into a Japanese position. The ground in front of the position was littered with their rifles. They just dropped their rifles and went in with their kukris. And it was discovered afterwards, when they were withdrawn, they didn't have a single round of ammunition among them. They had just fought the Japs hand to hand. I always thought it was a pretty clumsy weapon, but it suits the Gurkhas, obviously. It was a very fearsome thing, and I should think probably terrified the opposition more than any other weapon in the armoury.
Flashman would have been wise. The Gurkhas, brandishing their kukris in this World War II footage were enough to put the fear of God into the godless. And then came the terrifying war cry. The Gurkhas are coming. In fact, it was the advance of the British in India early in the 19th century that was to forge an initially bizarre alliance. The East India Company's foot soldiery swept the entire subcontinent before them, until they reached the Himalayan kingdom of Nepal. Nepal, still living in the Stone Age, was going to be a pushover, dozily compliant. No sooner had its population risen than it was ready to go to bed again. It was a desperate misjudgment. Bloated from steamrolling a huge subcontinent, they encountered the men from Gurkha, from which the Gurkhas take their name, uninformed that its inhabitants regarded war as sport. From this tiny mountain fort, the Gurkhas, led by Pirti Narayan Shah, had swooped into the valleys to occupy 700 frontier miles, harass India and invade Tibet. The advance of the British army didn't bother them at all. The clashes were probably unique in military history in that the British were soon to abandon their disparagement of native troops. At the Battle of Kalanga, heavily outgunned, the Gurkhas fought almost to the last man, losing 520 warriors, but not before killing almost 800 British troops. An ensign who survived it wrote, "Run they would not, and of death they seemed to have no fear, though their comrades were falling around them." It was a salutary put-down for patronising attitudes, and was to lead to a remarkable alliance born of mutual admiration. After the battle, the British erected memorials to both sides, inscribing the Gurkha obelisk with the words, "They fought in fair conflict like men, and in the intervals of fighting showed us liberal courtesy." For the Gurkhas, life was never to be the same again. Their indomitable spirit, their stand here till we die philosophy, had so startled their British opponents that their commander, General David Ochterlony, said in effect, "We must get these little bounders on our side." Pragmatically, the Gurkhas' leader agreed that this was a jolly good idea. The British, he condescended, fought like lions. They're nearly as good as we are. And so was resolved a contract that was to put the Gurkhas under the aegis of the British Army for the next 180 years. The only change has been that they are now less exotically dressed.
Chin up. Okay.
Today's Gurkhas, to a man, come from the same Himalayan terrain, so barren and without future that recruitment into the British Army is the ultimate prize. So fierce is the competition that candidates have to submit to the indignity of being branded like cattle, albeit with indelible ink. This is to prevent the unsuccessful leapfrogging to the next recruitment outpost and applying again under a totally different name. Major Gordon Corrigan explains the qualities they're looking for.
I suppose what we're looking for is physical and mental robustness, flexibility, intelligence, loyalty. It's actually quite easy to find those qualities amongst the Gurkhas because their own society is hierarchical. It's a society where respect is automatically given to elders, to parents. Gurkha children do what their father tells them to do. Sadly, in our society, we've stopped doing that a long time ago.